we're going to see in this epic showdown as Muslim debaters get caught in a lie. Let's get straight to it in under 5 minutes. You're going to get my thoughts at the end.
Prompt is Muhammad is the final prophet of God.
I don't think that he was a prophet of God because when I look at, I guess, the origin as to how he received his prophecy, it's concerning to me. I know that he was in a cave and he was, I guess, attacked. I don't know the right word for it, like by the angel, or he was pressed by the angel and told to read something he said he couldn't read. And then he began to shake. And I think is it Khadijah, his wife at the time, told him what was going on, that he was a prophet. And then there's a point in which that he became like suicidal, to where he was trying to throw himself off of a mountain. And that just doesn't accord with someone receiving a message from God. Whenever I think about prophets in scripture, they're not attacked, or they don't have this reaction that makes them, like, I guess, suicidal. And when I think about someone being told to be thrown off of a cliff, if you will, I think about Matthew 4. It's one of my favorite chapters in the whole Bible, and it's Jesus Christ's temptation, and he's talking to Satan, and Satan is the one telling him to jump off of the cliff. So it doesn't really accord with someone who had an encounter with God. It seems way more sinister to me. It seems way more dark than someone who was a prophet of God.
But do you remember Moses' encounter with God?
Yes, I do.
He was terrified, was he not?
He was terrified, but his life wasn't threatened.
And then he was comforted.
Terrified.
He was running away. He was running away. And God said, come,
No.
take your shoes off, walk here.
No, so the account in scripture said, it's in Exodus, and he sees a burning bush, and he literally says, now I will literally turn aside to see why this bush is not consumed. He turns aside and he begins to have a conversation with God, and he tells him to take your shoes off. We're on holy ground. There's nothing in that text that says that he was terrified or scared or wanted to jump off of a mountain.
He was afraid.
It's not in
I
that
think
text.
awe is a better word.
Yes,
He was in
awe is a
awe
great
of
word,
what was
yeah.
happening, but it did not terrify him or make him run away from the presence of God. It actually drew him into the presence of God.
In
That's
comparison.
what God does
Okay,
in comparison to Muhammad's encounter.
I have an answer of two parts. First part, we have to be very careful where we get our narration from, because as I've been a Muslim for a long time, I've never heard that suicidal incident ever.
That's from the hadiths. I think it's
It
either
dep- again,
Sahih
we-
Muslim or Sahih Bukhari.
We go back, we have to make sure, because as I said, there are clear things in the Quran that hadith contradicts, therefore we just reject those hadith. That's part one. Part two, I don't know, probably I myself experienced a lot of awe moments in my life. And at that moment, you're not in your sanity. You can't process things the way they are. So, assumably, according to non-Muslim, he was approached by an angel, and the angel power kind of overtook him. He will not be able to be normal. He will not be able to react normally. And a third part of the answer, why are we assuming that all revelation to all prophets have to come the same way? They can be different.
They don't have to come the same way, but they'll never contradict the character of God. So we see God's character in every revelation that a prophet has with him, and they are never going to throw themselves off
So
of a cliff.
that's the problem is with that. We have to make sure that hadith is solid.
Yeah, but why is it so hard to find reliable documentation for the Quran? And then again, like, what documentation supports that the Quran is reliable in comparison to the Torah being corrupted?
So
What
just to
documentation
clarify,
supports
to like piggyback on that, so Quran, we believe, as we've mentioned, has not been altered or tampered. It's the same revelation that came down. What we're talking about is that hadith is man-made words that were collected. They are sayings of the Prophet that were collected for hundreds of years following his death. The likelihood of accuracy is very slim. So a lot of these hadiths are actually not correct or have been misinterpreted, which is why, as Moana was saying, if it contradicts the Quran, it's probably not an accurate hadith to go off of. But also, it depends on where you're getting your information. So let me backtrack and say that supernatural events in general can be frightening. It doesn't mean that God's character is negative or it's a sinister thing. Like, you use the word sinister, which I find very intense to describe this. The way that the revelation is described in the Quran isn't a sinister, dark thing. It's intense. God is sending you this big responsibility to carry on. I don't think anyone would receive it and be like, oh, cool. Like, that sounds easy.
It is true
It's
that
really
it is
heavy.
scary. It is
It
true
is.
that it can be frightening. However, when we see accounts of
prophets encountering angels in our text, in our scripture, they're always comforted. You're going to see, be not afraid. They're going to announce themselves. Gabriel announces himself. In the Quran, he does not say that he's the angel or the spirit that's coming to Muhammad. It does not say that in the Quran. And then also, I don't want to deviate from the prompt, but you said something interesting to me, and maybe we can discuss it later, but the thing about the hadith. There's revelation contained in the hadith, right? So how can you just
Define
it?
revelation.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Define.
Like words from Allah.
In hadith? No.
So nothing in the hadith.
It's collection
No,
of
there are
Muhammad
some.
saying
There are-
revelations.
Yeah, no, not revelations.
She used the word
But there are some, there is a special category of hadith, a very small category, where the Prophet is recording some of the conversations he's had with the angel, Gabriel.
Let's get straight into this and break it down. There was a lot being said there. And I think my problem with this debate is the Muslim women are inconsistent, picking and choosing, not consistent to help validate their own points. We look at the encounters that those from the past biblically had with God, it doesn't match up with what Muhammad had. I want to read you this. According to Islamic tradition, which is Sahih al-Bukhari, Muhammad's first encounter in the cave left him terrified, trembling and suicidal, attempting to throw himself off a mountain. But in scripture, when true prophets encounter God or angels, the result is awe and peaceful reassurance, not despair. In Exodus 3, Moses meets God at the burning bush and is called closer. In Luke 1, Gabriel appears to Mary, saying, "Do not be afraid." The contrast that with Matthew 4, where Satan tempts Jesus to throw himself off a high place. The suicidal impulse fits the pattern of demonic temptation, not divine revelation. That's why Christians question the source of Muhammad's experience. It doesn't align with the character of God who brings life and peace. It doesn't align with the character of God. Consistently, we see in the Bible God using angels or himself to speak to the prophets or speak to the people, and he reassures them, he directs them, and he empowers them to go on their way to do his work. And again, we look at this whole hadith debate, and again, it was just like a pick and choose. Is hadith revelation? It is, because it's Muhammad's thoughts, it's his writings, it's his encounters. But the problem is, when this is brought up in conversation, the Muslim will pick and choose and say, well, if it contradicts the Quran, then it's not something that we can look at. But if it contradicts the Quran, why would it be in the hadiths in the first place? When Muslims dismiss hadiths, they paint Muhammad negatively. And you know why? Because they're effectively picking and choosing what they believe. And the problem is the hadith is where most Islamic doctrine comes from, including daily prayers, fasting rules, and Sharia practices. If the hadith can't be trusted, Islam loses its primary historical source for Muhammad's life. And if it is trusted, then Muslims must also accept the difficult parts, including the cave encounter, rather than revising it whenever the Quran is challenged. We can't just revise and change things when it doesn't suit or doesn't paint our religion in the best light. Let's stand on business and stand on the truth which is in your word and your scriptures. But that never happens when the Muslim is challenged. Historical reliability favors the Bible, not the Quran, and I'm going to break this down. The New Testament is supported by over 5,800 Greek manuscripts, many from the 1st century, proving textual consistency. By contrast, the Quran's early manuscripts, like the Sanar's Codex, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, show variant readings, corrections, and missing passages. Islamic historians agree that Caliph Uthman ordered all competing Quranic texts to be burned to enforce one version. So when Muslims say the Quran has never been changed, that's simply not supported by evidence and simply not true. Even within Islam, there are 7 accepted readings, the Qiraat, proof of variation. In short, Christianity invites you to test its claims in the open. Islam asks you to accept its claims without questioning, and it's an unfair contrast. If revelation begins with suicidal despair, relies on uncertain sources, and needs defending by burning its variants, it's not from God, and it's not the truth. Guys, please like and subscribe as it supports the channel as we continue to grow, and I'd love to hear your comments in the comment section.